Recording in progress.
And just like that, Down Syndrome Awareness Month is here. Oh my goodness. I'm super excited because I think I have a reason to. We are the proud parents of a 5-year-old young man who was diagnosed with Down syndrome from in the womb. And so we get to be the voice for him even before he make his debut, right? And so we're excited because we're on the journey. We get to speak up for him, and not only for him and our family, but we get to also extend that love and that care and share and awareness to others. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Marsha Weigum, and we are celebrating Down Syndrome Awareness Month, October 1st through the 30th. And so through these 30 days and beyond, we're going to be bringing awareness. We're going to, share stories and just a lot of goodness. And so why I'm so excited, because our son cannot speak up for himself. And so it is very much our ethical responsibility to speak up for those in society who cannot do it for themselves. And so here we are. Awareness Month is here. But 30 days and then all these awareness. But what happened after 30 days is done, right? And so as we go through, we're going to share as much information and just talk about, different things to help us be aware and be mindful of as we go through, because I can guarantee you, and you can too, that every one of us knows someone, maybe it's a relative, maybe it's a cousin, or, maybe it's an aunt or an uncle back then who was affected by Down syndrome. And so we're in this together. We have an ethical responsibility. So you do not have to be on the journey or have that child, or, wishing that you would have that child, or you have to go adopt that one before you can do something. We can do something and we can do it now. So what is Down syndrome? I love to go back to the basic in order for me to build that solid understanding, right? We got to always go back to where does it started and grab the facts so we can get solid information, so we can be better informed, right? And so as we go through Down Syndrome Awareness Month, from the 30th to the 1st to the 30th, then we are encouraging you not to stop there, right? So the goal is to share as much small bites of information to get you all aware so you can go forth, looking up, doing the research, and speaking up for these people, persons and family with Down syndrome. So what is history? What is Down syndrome? Let's look at the history. So Down syndrome was actually, let me rephrase that. So Dr. John Langdon Downs, he was a physician, right? And he was, in his practice, I'd subject to these different people coming in with these syndromes, and so it was starting to wonder why so much people coming in, they have the same, kind of, characteristics. And so he become curious. It was starting to happen over and over and over again. And as a physician, you get to see it over again. So he said, what, we're going to pay attention to this. And so Dr. John Langdon Downs, he was a physician. And so he was the one who described the characteristics of Down syndrome, right? He started just realized that there was facial, differences or similarities among the different people that was coming in. So he got curious. And so the term Down syndrome comes from Dr. Langdon Downs, right? Dr. Downs was the one who described the characteristics of these people and persons who are coming in. And so from what I have been understanding is that back in those times, the person who discover or the person who, do extensive research on a particular project, the name normally follows them. So I want you to know that Down syndrome is not the diagnosis. right? It is not the child. It's not your family. Down syndrome. So we need to get that very clear that Dr. Downs was the one who discover it, do extensive research and come up. He wasn't the one who, to find out what happened, right? So he got to another person, took the legwork on that. But he started this. He started to see all of these characteristics popping up, and so you get very curious, right? And as a result, Down syndrome was named after Dr. John Landon, right? So Down syndrome characteristics, they differ. The characteristic that they show, the eye shape, most of us we said, the eyes are this almond shaped, something kind of like this. I mean, if you listen to podcasts, I know you can see, but the different, facial looks, the look of the neck, right? The shoulder blades are different, right? The fingers or the finger shape is different. The lines into the palm of the hand is different. Like most of us, the one in the hand will look like an M. Right? Like for me, the mark in my hand look like an M. But for a person with Down syndrome, normally they have this like one line run across on the knuckles, right there inside of the palm of the hand. So the characteristics were different. And so he started to, get curious, and he was not in medicine at the conception of this. Was not in medicine, right? But the history that I found is say that he encountered someone, an 18-year-old, who came in with the characteristics, and it sparked his interest to go into medicine so he can understand this more. So he set out to find the answer. At the time of Dr. Downs' research and so on, he wasn't sure what the whole thing was about. And so he actually called it at the time, Mongolism, right? So, and that's what it did in me, and that I came upon hearing when I first encountered persons with Down syndrome. They will call them Mongolites, right? During the time when I did over 20 years, thank you, 20 years of employment working with special needs, Down syndrome and other special needs. That's the name, when I went there, they describe these kids as Mongolites. And so Dr. Downs was calling them Mongolites at the time. I'm so glad that he went into medicine and did his research and come up with it, give him the name Dr. Downs' name, right? So anyway, I'm so happy that he did, right? Because if he did not, then we'll probably still be ignorant, right? So it's always cool to see how each person when they play their role and they step into their role, they turn out to make a really good impression on society. So be mindful that Down syndrome was named after the physician, Dr. John Langdon Downs. And so the characteristics, they continue, but the cause of what causes this characteristic, what was going on, why these people and young adults were turning up with these similar characteristics. Well, that's one of the things that Dr. Downs did not get to know. But it's okay, because someone else picked that up, and today we are more aware of this diagnosis, right? And so the characteristics of the syndrome, but was unsure of the cause. And so the second thing I want to look at is that Dr. Downs, he would be considered one of the first voice for persons living with this diagnosis, right? So I would say he's the first voice, all right? When he encountered that girl, as the history said, he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure what was going on. So he went into medicine to figure this out, right? He went to medicine with this curiosity, and I'm so glad he did, because what would we do now, right? No, for most of us who are parents, I just want to welcome you and thank you so much for listening and to joining in and sharing this information with persons who you might know, or just to get your awareness up, right? So we can probably agree that Dr. London Downs was one of the first advocates for persons with Down syndrome, right? And so fast forward, with all the extensive work that he and his team did, and the result that they come up with, still couldn't figure out what causes Down syndrome. No, his name was put on that because he categorized and come up with the characteristics. So he's our first advocate. And so what was the mission? What was the mission of Dr. John Langdon Down? So one, it was to provide compassion and dignified care to individuals with developmental disability. That was one of his missions. The second one was to promote understanding and acceptance of individuals with disability within society. And most of us is aware of the stigma that go on with people who have a challenge. And so sometimes caregivers and parents are shameful of having a child or a loved one or a relative living with Down syndrome. So yeah, there's a huge stigma in society. And so just bringing these bits of awareness and this information and the history, my hope is that you will go away, you will go do more extensive research and who was that Dr. Downs, and just what was his intention back then? What was his discovery? What was happening back then, right? So we can enlighten ourselves and our understanding. And the other thing was to advance the scientific understanding of intellectual and developmental disability through research, right? He wanted us to be able to understand that better. And because of the work that he does, we're going to learn later on that, it is continuing in, let's say, the modern world, right? I will say the modern world because, Downs in that time, it was like in the 18 something, right? So it was to bring that advancement, right? And next thing was to advocate for educational and vocational opportunities for individuals with disability, including women. So you and I probably, depends on where you're at, you might sometimes see persons with Down syndrome working into, certain stores, right? And, what I've seen already too, persons having like what do you call them? Like an assistant with them on the job. So these are some of the things, the mission that is set out to accomplish. And so that's why today we can see, and appreciate even the month of Down syndrome, awareness month and World Down Syndrome Day. All of these things come into the education and the awareness and the advocacy that was put into his work and the people who are continuing today. And so he also wanted us to challenge prejudice, right? And so just like we said, all those prejudices that, things that go on, connotation, and so what happened when that happened is that parents sometimes either these children are home. They sometimes give them up for adoption. Termination, was always been offered, because the stigma sort of continues down the line in some way that children and people with disability or special ability, Down syndrome and any one of the labels, because they are all just a label, right? That they're useless in society. But with persons like you and I, being the voice for the voiceless, doing our ethical call, it's going to get better with awareness and so on. I know it's so good because in our time now, we can just go to the internet and, of course, hopefully find credible sources to do our history searches. And so it's beautiful. I'm just so happy that he was curious enough to pay attention to Down syndrome. I'm excited, okay? I'm loving it. And the beautiful thing about me as a parent and a caregiver of person with special needs is that it's a continuous learning curve, right? So it's not like, you know this and that's it. No, you continue to learn because you're talking about people, right? People with unique personalities and abilities, just like you and I are, right? So what is happening now to Down syndrome? Because of course, Dr. Downs is long far gone, but his work continues through the Down Syndrome Association. They play a very vital role in continuing Dr. Downs' mission in the modern world, as that's why I was saying about the modern world, right? What are your thoughts? What are you thinking right now? Pause this video and just reflect upon what we hear so far and just what you're gonna do next, right? Because this is just a quick overview-ish, right? We're not going to any specifics because it's not even a place for it, but you gotta do the research, you gotta do the work. I was thinking of this one book I heard about. Anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but yeah, you pause the video and think about it. What action can you take? What can you do differently, right? With this information now that you hear and understand that Down syndrome is not the diagnosis, it's not your child, it's not the child, it is not my son, right? And so the Down Syndrome Association, they're playing a very vital role in continuing on this work that he started, right? So one of the things they're doing is to create support for individual families. The association is providing support, they're providing information and resources to individuals with Down syndrome and their families. Can you imagine? Can you imagine a family, having all the hopes and the dreams of, everything's going to go good with the pregnancy, and just to hear that there's an abnormality. And worst of all is when they tell you to terminate this child. The world is like shattered. However, there is hope because the love and the joy that persons with Down syndrome and other special needs bring to the family, man, it's got to, and that's why we're on a journey already, regardless of where we're at in everything. We can share the positivity, the possibilities, the endless possibilities that's yours for you and your family. Oh my goodness, it's just awesome, right? And so support, the Down Syndrome Association is continuing with support, right? They're continuing on with advocacy, right? The organization advocate for the rights and inclusion of individuals with Down syndrome in society, right? This includes advocating for inclusive education, for healthcare, and for employment opportunities. So you can see where Dr. Downs' mission is still in effect, right? And so as a result of all of this, I want to tell you that there is hope. There is hope. I know this video this information it might be not for you, but I know there's persons out there who continually go on a search to find information, and then it's endless. Okay, so advocacy and so support for families, advocacy, research and education, right? They fund and they support research into Down syndrome and related issues. Because from the biological standpoint, it's still not clear what happened. There is a false connotation out there that says it's the age of the woman that causes Down syndrome. Yep, when you're too old and if you have the baby, over a certain age, then it's a possibility that you're gonna have your child's gonna be born with Down syndrome. let's see, what was my thoughts? Anita today, I said, so what did you think that way? You know, when we found out we're having a son and the diagnosis was as such, I didn't think about age because I've been doing my readings and, you know, my work and so, and we found out that there's persons, families as young as age 18 as a child with a diagnosis. So then could it be age? I don't think it is. But so the research continues, right? And so that's good. And then the foundation is also providing awareness. And so you have October, a month like this, bringing awareness, community building, right? So I'm so grateful that they're continuing Dr. Dawn's legacy by promoting more understanding, acceptance, opportunities for individuals with Down syndrome and their family. I can't imagine what our understanding would look like if we weren't able to have some form of information, as to what's going on, why the difference is, what's going on here, right? And so this is really cool. Let me tell you a little bit about our story. I ain't gonna go in the depth of it. If you want to know the depth, get connected on the email, on my email list, follow us on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and quite a few places, okay? So it's been 5 years now since we were told that there's a 99.9% chance that our son, Nathan, is going to be born with Down syndrome. And so one of the recommendation was that you can terminate because is not going to be able to, this baby, not here, she didn't know what gender, but, here she is not going to be able to have a normal life in society. It's going to be more so a burden to us. He's not going to be able to learn and so on. The picture was painted. And so we straight up refused that kind of offer. And we went straight into saying, what else? What else do we have in our community, right? Because what you don't know is that I've served the special community all my life, right? From a teenage. And so she told us that, and so we know that families, our relatives sometimes get very despondent, especially when they hear this kind of news that, you can terminate. That's when nobody going to start in their family to want to hear those kind of information. So it's disappointing, right? To hear those kind of things come from as an encouragement or a suggestion. And so we all can relate, right? That we all know somebody. We probably have a relative, a cousin, a sister, a brother, aunt, an uncle, somebody. We all know somebody who has a developmental challenge. But one beautiful thing I want you to take away, if you don't remember anything else, is that number one, Dr. Downs was the one who named the characteristics, right? These different features and looks of the face and the body and, all that was going on. So the name Down syndrome is not your child, right? And secondly, I want you to leave here and be curious to go do some research in finding out more about Down syndrome. And so we all know somebody, and we all can do something to make a difference. You know what? The Bible teaches us that, number one, we have to study to show ourselves approved. That means we're supposed to be reading, we're supposed to doing our deep researches, we're supposed to find our, credible sources and go for the information and check it. We're supposed to read the word of God, right? Because we believe that the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. We also understand that God created man. He said, yes, he did create man. He said he created them all. He created them male and he created them female, right? So we know that there's a creator of the human race, right? So we're supposed to be studying and finding out what does this say about us? What is going on here, right? And so there's another part of the scripture where it tells us that he knew us before he formed us in the womb. Isn't that cool? He knew you, he knew your child, he knew me, he knew our child before he formed them in my womb, right? And so, and the third thing is, so first, study to show yourself approved as the scripture teaches us. And secondly, is that he knew us before he formed us in our mother's womb. He knew you. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, he knew you. He knew you by name. He knew everything about you. And so, and third thing is that the Bible teaches us that we are to speak up for the less fortunate among us. It is my ethical duty as a mother to speak up for my son, to speak up for my children until they can speak up for themselves. But we know that our son, 5, still not speaking as well. We had was to speak up for him, right? And so now we're not only, doing it for ourselves, but we're also speaking up to share encouragement, to share information, to bring enlightenment, to be a part of awareness, to speak up so that others who are going to be on the journey, who are on the journey already, can be motivated. Because as I said before, it can be a scary, shameful path for most families. Most families are broken up just because of a diagnosis. I spoke with a guest recently, and she was saying that in her country, the families see these kids as a curse, and then the community blame the family that they did something evilous, and so that's why they bring this evil in the community. Couldn't have been anything further from the truth. So this is a reality of the kids, human beings that God created. Even though He tells us in His Word that the earth is His and everything in it, they and everything in it. So we have to join the awareness, we have to join the speaking up, right? You and I have to do something. It might just be you reading up more, so that when you see that person on the road, or that probably you're that caregiver, that mama, right, or that mother-in-law, that's a challenge too. Or the father who think, what, my son ain't going to be doing what? He ain't gonna be going to regular college. Hey, they can go to college. They can learn. So do your research, do your study, further study. Don't make it stop here. Don't make it stop at just one day, or just passing the video and you just buck up and something. Come back and you read up on it, right? Go do your deep research. Find your credible sources and find out information and dig deeper, right? On your next encounter with a person who probably look and have the characteristics of Down syndrome or any other special needs for that matter, because the labels and everything is just all a label, right? So the next time you encounter a person with the special need, seek to understand them, right? Do your research. And if it's up to you, advocate on their behalf, please. That's kind of like my big ask for you, right? Seek to know more, advocate on their behalf, do your research, right? Speak up, treat that person as though you would want to be treated. You're not a curse. You're God's beautiful and awesome human being. You're so full of love. They're an example of what perfect love looks like, okay? And so we all can agree that Dr. Downs was a great model for us and how we should approach Down syndrome and other special needs. Be curious. He was curious when he came, when the 18-year-old walked into his practice, and then he started to say the same characteristics over and over again. And so it sparked his interest to go into medicine. And not only to go into medicine and to do nothing, but he went in there and his mission was so vast, which continues today. through the Down Syndrome Association. And because we are now on the journey as caregivers, once but now parent, it is our responsibility to learn more about this. All fitting is resources, is studies, is papers, is perfect to read. Yes, you might say, but those are old information. Hey, yeah, you gotta go back to them old stuff. You gotta go back to the foundation. Do not throw your foundation information out. That is, that has been tested and tried, and it's ethical and all that. Use it to mine through it and to come up and find your information that you need to build your understanding, because the Bible says we should be studying anyway, right? So we all can do something. We all can agree that he was a great role model of not just seeing a problem and do nothing about it, but he also seek to go further into it to help better these people's lives, right? Can you imagine what would happen to our homes and our community if Dr. Downs didn't start? If he didn't take that first action, if he didn't take that first step, what would have happened to us today? Us parents, me as a parent, I don't know what I would do, right? But as I said, there's always a way out. So my encouragement to you is to start somewhere, be curious, get educated about Down syndrome and other special needs. If it's even to be able to treat that person or the cousin or the child with the care and the love that you would like somebody to give to you, right? Do it for that. If it's even for that, do it. Be curious like him and then do something. Or you probably, say, Marsha, I can't go, but I could do this deep study about anything right now. You probably can volunteer for an organization like what we did. So we founded our Voice for the Voiceless, which is Down syndrome and other special needs support, which is a 501c3 organization. And my whole aim is to bring awareness about Down syndrome, is to provide community support and resources for families in our area and online. Why is that important? Because most of us, our country, our country is full of people coming from all different places and all different walks of life, right? Most of us are not from around here. And so when you leave from one point to the next, and you come and you settle in a place, and then you find that life is happening, you need support. We need support. And so we can fight all we want to fight, we can behave as we want to behave, but we all have an ethical responsibility to speak up for those in our society, whether they are Black, they're white, they're chocolate, whatever the color, whatever the flavor might be. We have an ethical responsibility to speak up on their behalf, especially those who cannot speak up for themselves. And so that's some of the ways in which you can be of support. You can volunteer in an organization. You can choose to do some more deeper study. You can donate to the causes. You can spread the word, like this video. I would love for you to spread this video. Share it around. We just reshare it again. Subscribe to our YouTube page. Listen to our podcast on Spotify and Google Podcasts and about 4 other platforms. Voice of Hope Show, where you get to hear stories and inspiration to help you overcome, to rise and to overcome stigma, overcome challenges, overcome doubt, so that you can do and be your best. You can live your full potential and be of good use for society. My friend, I'm so glad you took the time out to listen to this video and to share it, and just come back again. So this is day 1 of Down Syndrome Awareness Month. And so we still need to answer the question, what is Down syndrome? What is the name then? If Down syndrome is not the name, so what is it? What is the name of it? And so we're going to answer that on our next video. We're going to look it up, okay? So come back again, share. I would encourage you to join our community, or someone you know who has a child with Down syndrome or any other special needs. I want you to encourage them to join our community, because as you see in Dr. Down's mission is to build community, build awareness, build support, advocating for these people so that they can have a good quality of life. All right? I'm so grateful you're here. And I want you to just come back again and to share. And from the depth of my heart, I thank you so much. I thank you for that person who you once knew, or you knew right now you're caring for. Give them all the love, the compassion, the kindness that they deserve. Treat them just as you'd want to be treated if you were in the position. Marsha saying, until next time, share, be awesome. You are an awesome human being. Just keep growing, being, and doing, and you're going to get there anyway. So on the next video, our next communication, we are going to look at what is the name then for Down syndrome, since it's not what the diagnosis name is. Until next time, Marsha said, happy